Thank you. Many thanks. So to warm up and wake us up, I have prepared this short Mentimeter also while we're waiting for Natalia to join us. So if you would like to grab your phone or just go to your browser and type menti.com and enter the code, or just scan this QR code here. I'll just keep it for a few moments so that everyone. Oh, I see. It's not working, the QR code here. Fantastic. Is it working for everyone else? Or is it just me that I cannot? Oh, no. Now it works. Just need some time. And I'll need to stop sharing for a second and go to the Mentimeter. And hopefully everyone had a moment to also please share here. Mentimeter. So hopefully people have some time to join. I allow a few more seconds for most of us to find our way to the Menti. So menti.com, and the code is 4796 4080. Oops. No, I'm sorry. Starting. So this first question, just thinking a little bit out of the box, if we can say so. So if open infrastructures were an animal, what do you think? What would it be? A strong one, interconnected, long-lived, or just very tired, like a sloth? I don't know. I used to really like sloths. I don't know, like all this business, being very busy, and sometimes you admire the being tired is not something you have to be afraid of. I always choose the interconnected one. So what do you think? Oh, interconnected is the most popular one. No one has been strong. You guys don't like elephants, or you think the other qualities are more important for open infrastructures? That's interesting. So interconnected is very important. Octopus it is then. And moving to the next one. So if your current research assessment system were a household appliance, so we have to think a bit more here. What would it be and why? And just, I'm sorry for a second. Complicated, I see. And I'm glad we also have Natalia here with us. I saw her coming. Air fryer, yes, they're very modern. Hi, Natalia.
Hello.
Good to see you. We are having very important conversation questions about if the current research assessment system were a household appliance, what would it be and why? And you're just here to the point. So we have a very interesting
Okay.
responses here just before we start. So multi-purpose machine, air fryer, I see. Thermomix, broken. I would like to hear more about that. The broken. A stove, accepted. Wrong tool for the task. That is also interesting. Wi-Fi router, Hammer. Okay, I see. You have a lot of interesting. Oh, multi-purpose machine. It's again comes up, and it would need an update. I think we have to discuss about that. And just before we start, we begin with the presentation. The last question is, which challenges does your organization face when moving to open infrastructure for assessment? And I just allow here, like, just a couple of few responses just to brainstorm to help us grind it, just to help us grasp more and understand the crucial things that are needed here. So just a few responses we'll get here. General lack of knowledge. Again, it's what challenges does your organization face when moving to open infrastructures for assessment? Here we also responsible research assessment. Of course, old habits die hard. Change takes time, I would say. Inertia, general lack of knowledge, yes. Legal, unlike these responses show the diversity, cultural support, inexperience, sustainable support, fear, loss of reputation. Ooh, very interesting one. Skepticism, financial constraints. Okay, and with that, I think we more are coming. Data quality, another critical part. National laws, of course, and policies. So security issues, financing and competence. So I'm glad to see all these responses because it resonates quite well with what we are have been working here, and I'm just would like to really quickly go all the way to Natalia. Natalia, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Would you like to present? I mean, would you like me to share the presentation, or are you going to share?
If you can.
Of course.
But can I move the click or not?
You would need to. I can
No,
do that for you.
Then let me
Okay.
share. Let me share
Okay.
mine. Okay.
Sure.
How do I share? Share this. Okay. So do you see it now? I can do it in. Oops. Allow. Do you see it now?
Not yet. It says Natalia Manola has started screen sharing. I don't see something, but let's wait for.
Maybe you should share, Yulki, because I did an upgrade on my computer and neither Teams nor Zoom seem to be able to share my. I have to look at it. Apologies.
And now you can see my screen, right?
We can see your screen.
So you can start from here.
But we can see your desktop now.
Oh,
Yulki.
Apologies.
Apologies to everyone. We thought we had it, because we've done it before so many times, and of course, it's yes. Okay. Okay, so I can start. Apologies again, another apology for being late, but I'm in a conference here in Athens where we talk about health data and sharing, and not something with research assessment. So what is, first of all, thank you all for joining us, and thank you a lot for members that I see from the working group that we did a lot of live and interesting discussions in order to reach what we are presenting today. So first of all, what this webinar is about is that we must adopt open infrastructure for responsible research assessment now, taking into account your comments about data quality and all of these things, which we may discuss a bit. And then what we want to present is how do we move forward and understanding the different components of the open infrastructures, how they connect to each other, who should be involved and how, and then of course to gather your feedback, hopefully in a live discussion. Next slide, Agiliki, is, so this is, find out if you can, pass on control to me, because I know that in some cases you can do it. Let's put some context. We will go over this very quickly. What is the CoARA vision? We are all here because we have been signatories or we believe in the CoARA vision. Is that the assessment needs to be reformed. One of the key things is that to recognize diverse outputs, but also not just output, but also practices and activities, and to put a lot of qualitative judgment in the loop where peer review is central. And peer review is not just about peer reviewing publications anymore, but it's peer review in other settings. Next slide. So our group, 81 members, and again, a huge thanks for their contribution. When we started was about, how to have in open infrastructures, to move away from proprietary infrastructure, to move beyond, and what does this entail? Okay, we have been sharing this with Clifford Tatum from CWTS. And also, I would like to say that Thanasis Vergoulis, we had two subgroups. One subgroup was about the framework that we presented about 2 months ago, about the framework of open infrastructures and what are the characteristics and how we should go on and build them and what we should be looking at. And then now with Thanasis Vergoulis from Athena Research Center, we have the second subgroup, which is about more practical and say how these things are interlinked together and what are the specifics that we need to do at the conceptual and policy level. So why, next slide, why are open infrastructures are non-negotiable? Again, taking into account of these data things, the data quality things that that it was voted before. Agiliki, next slide, is that we're talking about open infrastructures, open research information, and then, we need to pair it with responsible assessment, research assessment, okay? And if you think about the CoARA, what we're doing in CoARA, we said diverse outputs, we said practices, we said also about peer review and qualitative. And what we have now is that the universities, we are doing, or in other environments, we're doing assessment based on some indexes that they are based mainly on publication, okay? Slightly, we're moving away from publication, but we don't know, how to capture these practices. And we know that in many cases, we put a lot on the qualitative, processes through interviews, through all of these things. But in other cases, researchers are or organizations are assessed in bulk mode, I would say. So these closed systems, first of all, they are expensive. Let's be honest with ourselves. They are expensive. Then they are a bit disconnected from platforms that have discovery and reuse. So how can we trust the systems that are doing are not very open, are not very transparent? Now what we have is that we have systems that embed inside a lot of AI in order to do this linking to curate the data or the metadata. And we don't know what they do. We have a bunch of narrow metrics with impact factors and citation counts that ignore the practices and the uptake. And last but not least, we have a vendor dependence, long-term lock-in threatens sustainability and equity. So this is it's systems that are expensive, that are for probably the few, and that we feel that they do not capture a lot of what are the emerging trends in research. Next slide. So, on the other hand, the emerging research infrastructure, what we see is coming forward. We see research diversity, we see publications, data software, ML models or other models, methods, and other research outputs. We see that we have to have community embedded in the knowledge and practices to ensure the relevance. We think about interoperability because there's not one system. If you think of, from publications, from data repositories, from software repositories, there is not one system that captures all. So we need to have systems that interconnect to each other. We know about this cost efficiency, and this is where open infrastructures come forward. And I can speak from our experience in OpenAir, is that we rely heavily on institutional investments, on repositories, on open access journals, on processes, on skilled personnel. We do rely a lot of that. And then, the open infrastructures, we think about, equity and inclusion, fair and inclusive access for all stakeholders. We have the problems of sustainability because, we have the open infrastructures which cost money, and sometimes, or often, not sometimes, very often, people confuse the openness to being, free, which is not the case. And we have the open infrastructures that, we have started on global collaborations because research is a global endeavor. And that means is that we need to have infrastructures that they talk to each other, and that we have the global view. So this is where, the research infrastructures comes into system. And what we see, for example, in NEOSC and European Open Science is that we have about $500 million investment, from member states. And if you take the universities and the investment from the universities, that is an additional cost on how they are doing this. It's close, I think, close for the 7 years, close to 1.4 billion euros. So a lot of investment is happening in open science. Okay, a lot of it is about making sure that the data is open, the publications are open, everything is open. A lot of it is investment is on building these bridges and interoperability across them. And then, the paradox is that we have closed evaluation systems. So next slide is that I think, this is where we're saying that closed systems to evaluate open systems to a bit back. Okay, thank you. Open systems, that we are pushing for open science. So what we need to do is, where open infrastructures come to place, is that there are a lot of these things that we need to think about. And I think you captured a few of them in the Menti on the things that concern. So for us, that we are infrastructure providers, the technical complexity and the sustainable funding is something that is of concern. And this is one of the topics that we want to discuss today. On the other hand, is the quality and trust, and the resistance to change. And what I would like to say on this quality and trust is that, having worked and having done benchmarks with many databases, proprietary and open, I think there is a perceived data quality on the closed ones. Open ones, year by year, and I would say day by day, week by week, they are getting much better. And what, from personal experience, what I would like to say is that there is not one database that is 100% accurate in everything that they report, but all of these databases they have a very good representation. And as open science, so as much as we have open science, everything in the open, and as much as we are investing in infrastructure, the open infrastructures, I think there is a turning point that they will get, that they are getting, not that they will get, that they're getting better than the proprietary. So please, for the skepticism, for the skeptics in the group here, This could be a discussion that we would like to have. And also we would like to have it, not just a discussion, perhaps with benchmarks to see, where does the skepticism come from. Next slide. So that has been, all of this talk was about an introduction on where we are, and the Zenodo link in this previous slide was about, these roadblocks and stuff, and what, and the subgroups one, specifications, recommendations, and framework on what open infrastructures need to be in order to have all of these technical capability, the sustainability, the quality, and the quality. So our next subgroup, as I said, led by Thanasis Vergoulis and Angeliki here, is about a conceptual architecture on how we want to put the pieces together. You're going to see we have a report on Zenodo. And let me explain with the next slide, Angeliki, what we're trying to do here is that the implementation of open infrastructure that is fit for RRA, it's not just open research information, it's open research information that we will use in a trusted way in order to be able to make research assessment. So one of the things that we did, and this is where the conceptual architecture comes in, is we had to divide the world in tiers. And why did we do that? We did that because, this is how we work. And this is how we want people to understand where, they can get data from, they can invest in, and how the things are interconnected, because it's very peculiar. And these layers are operated by different actors. So let's start that, we have these four tiers. So before, back, we have the foundation, at the bottom, identifiers and standards. We have the next one is the local infrastructure. Think about funding, funders, institutions, whoever, that they have their, databases, their repositories, their publishing system, their data centers now. And then also think about, the scholarly metadata aggregators, which is, now we're starting to think about, connecting everything in a global manner. And then the last tier 3, is the one that is about services, not just about data, but also about services to do research assessment and other supporting services. So we divided the world of research assessment and infrastructures in these 4 tiers. I will go and explain a bit about every tier, and then I will go and see how these tiers are interconnected together and what we need to do about it. So the foundational tier is about persistent identifiers and harmonized meta standards. It's very simple in that, okay? But we need them. Without them, there is a world out there, a zoo. So these are, the simple DOI, the ORCID, the ARC identifier, N identifier, the ROR identifier. These are things that we need, and that establish an ambiguous machine actionable links between people, organization, outputs that ensuring metadata integrity and interoperability across systems. So how do we support with the RRI is structured data flows essential for fair, transparent assessment. So this is a tier that we are all using, but in many cases, it does not come into our thinking when we're setting up, global or local infrastructure as part of an investment, okay? Publishers pay for the DOIs. Repository needs to pay, small or big money for, for identifiers. Institutions are paying for ORCIDs. ROR comes for free for the moment, and there are going to be other identifiers for data, for software, for all of these things that, we take for granted in many cases. And this is something that, we need to understand that without them, not much can be done along. Second tier, okay, tier 1, okay, is we call them the publishing venues. Maybe, this is not, it's a good name. I'm not sure, if it tries to capture what we want to do, but this is, the local infrastructure that repositories, preprint servers, open access journal platforms, that host and expose all research outputs. And of course, publishers come into this here. So this is, could be local or it can be global. But what we would like here to say is that most of the universities, or if not all, they do have all of these infrastructure. They host and they have policies, they have skilled people in order to start gathering output. What they don't understand in many cases is that how this local infrastructure is connected to the global assessment system. Because if we're pushing for open science, somehow all of the results of a university or of a research performing organization or a funding organization should find their way into their local systems. Next one is this is also where OpenAIRE comes into. Scholarly metadata aggregators, so infrastructures that harvest, enrich, disambiguate, and interlink metadata into a unified scholarly graph. So we see that they are, we have OpenAIRE Graph, we have OpenAlex. In China, we have PubScholar. In many countries, we have national, quiz systems. So these are the scholarly graphs that we are spending a lot of effort in order to make them as good as they can get. And there are some, at the level of the university, like an institutional quiz, at the level of the country as a national quiz, and then we go globally. So this is something that is also proprietary databases like Web of Science, like Scopus are. So these are fit into there because it's about metadata aggregators. What the open science aggregators and metadata databases do is that they go much beyond publications. They include everything in there. So the idea is to have these metadata aggregators that it's a complete data set of everything that is connected. Okay, and the next tier 3, is about the research assessment support services. So we have now popping up, proprietary and non-proprietary, open tools that they use these databases, the tier 2, which are able to process the data and in order to make insights from the data, because the data itself, you need a data scientist in order to do that. So there are services where they are doing that. So what we are saying is that the first 3 layers should be very open. Where data is concerned should be open. In the second layer, where we have services, services can be proprietary and be provided at the local services as long as they follow the open standards and interoperability rules. And tier 3, it is something that we believe that both open and proprietary services can fit in there very nicely and coexist. So how do these 3 services work together? So, from data to decision, okay? So we have, the PIDs, the local data, the global data, and then we have the services. So this is, how these are connected is that the idea and the key thing is to collect the data, okay? And then, to have the services to form a decision. So a full stack workflow showing how outputs move through all tiers. We will go through an example, and to demonstrate how open infrastructures work together to support these research assessments. So it's mainly about connecting the dots between the different parts. So from tier 0 to tier 1, we have an example here, a researcher uploading a data set and a preprint to an open access repository, or two repositories. We get the DOIs, we get the ORCID IDs, we get the funder, the institutional role. So for the DOI, it's very it's obvious because all of these platforms, they get this. The ORCID ID is becoming more and more, obvious that everyone needs. ROR ID is yet still to be, caught up by many institutions. So what we are doing in tier 0 and tier 1 is that these two systems interconnect together. So when I deposit something, I deposit it using, well-established identifiers and well-established metadata. Then the next, when I do that, is that an aggregator comes into place, and we collect, records from all around the world. We duplicate, we enrich, we link to related publications because, we harvest from so many places, and we need to, places that may use standards, may not use standards. So there is a lot of work in doing this, this aggregation and harmonization and enrichment. So what we have now is we have something that started from tier 0 as PIDs, got into publishing venues in tier 1, which was local institutions or publishers, and then it's becoming an interconnected data. And then in tier 3, in the next slide, is what we see is that this data set now, it's not, we don't have a data set, but we have a dashboard with nice graphics, telling us, this is how it works, and this is the trend, and this is the links. So there's a lot of analysis based on this global data, and not just global data, but also think about comparisons of local or individual data with others. So this is where the services come. The services come with their own algorithms, their own things, and they just show nice things around the data sets. What is important to see here is that with CoARA, is that we are moving also to the narrative CV, which could be a service, which could be an overlay of researchers presenting what they are doing in a narrative way, of course linked with evidence in the underlying data. So this is how the four things interconnect. Next. Now, what is missing from the pictures? Okay, what is missing from the picture, not from the picture, I mean, the picture I think is okay, is complete. What is missing from what we need to do in order to promote open infrastructures? Okay, so what we need to say is that in this game, they are the RPOs and the RFOs, the research performing organization and research funding organizations, but they have a key role in how these open infrastructures are being shaped and are being reused. Not only the funding, but also in them become active participants, active contributors into this. So what we did is, after we had this initial breakdown and described the tiers, what we did is we came up with an action plan, okay, for institutions. So institutions, what their role is to be in the tier 1, which is the local infrastructure, okay, but also in how they're using or they're investing in the other tiers, okay. So if you read about this, we publish this in order in a separate document. This RPO action plan, I'm going to keep the next one, talks about, next slide, talks about, here, talks about how, this tier 1 layer, the local, how it should be integrated into systems with open infrastructure, what they would need to do to improve the metadata quality and data sharing, at that level, tier 1, how to make sure that they don't have, infrastructure only for publications or, for data. So how can they expand their horizon? how to build capacity and ensure long-term support, in the libraries or repository managers or even the researchers. How also that's on the tier one services, but also then, is they need to be educated and they need to be knowledgeable on how to adopt open research indicator. Okay, so what does it mean, for somebody to do open research and open science, and how at the institutional level do I take this into consideration? And then, how to embed open infrastructure practices in policies. And policies is not, again, let me stress that, enough, I can't stress it enough. And the policy is not only the policy on open science, on making researchers doing open science, but also the evaluators and the assessors. They need to do it in an open way, okay, using open infrastructures, using open indicators, using, things that are very transparent. And this is, what they need to do and think about the 4 tiers. So next one for the RFOs is, they are shaping the system. Okay, so for them is that they support diverse outputs and open metrics. So they reshape the incentives because they're giving, they have the power to evaluate researchers on their for grants, and they have the power to drive a systemic reform in their funding policies. So our next slide, what does our recommendation say is how, first of all, how does their data become open? Because, we funders are pushing researchers to deposit in open science, but let's see how easy it is to find, the funding information and who has been funded and for what purpose and all of that. So they need to be, they need to do what they are, preaching others to do. Then is how can they integrate and monitor the funding outcomes with open solutions as much as possible, using all of these, tiers and open aggregators. Adopt research indicators responsibly. So what does it mean, for them to say, do I have 100 publications or do I have 5 publications and I have, built 3 systems that are used around the world? So this is something that, everyone needs to think about. Embed open infrastructure requirements in funding policies, like deposit things, in your local infrastructure, in tier 1, use identifiers and all of these. Support local infrastructure development, when we have funders at the national level, what does it mean to have a policy about openness when you don't, yourself support the infrastructure building? And of course, it's foster capacity building and collaboration amongst funders, amongst, the actors of the research community. And going to the end of the presentation, so what we have left out is that we know that this open infrastructure and this stack is something that the different actors see their slice of the world. So, institution managers, for example, they see the investment in tier 2. Maybe a national infrastructure, European infrastructure sees at tier 2, tier 1 or tier 2. Now mix the tiers a bit. So what we want to say here, first of all, that all of these tiers, they need funding. Okay, they are open infrastructure. Doesn't mean it's a free infrastructure, but it's what we're trying to say. Yes, let's put this aside. We need to invest on all of these tiers, all of us, not just one by one. But it's not about money. So what we need to do is about, jointly shaping the directions those infrastructures take through participation and shared responsibility. And this is effort. This is resources. So think about this, open infrastructure system, that there is a technical management, funding, make sure that things are operating nicely in that. But what we also need to do is we need to think that, we need to support them with resources, with people, with, knowledge, with support structures. And of course, one of the other support structures that nobody's looking at, especially when they work at their university environment, is that provide funding, or resources, whatever resources could be in-kind contribution, for the coordination across these tiers and across these across regions. What is left? Next slide. So I think I said that is that don't stop at dashboard or repositories, do this, fund foundational layers. Next, before slide. Connect institutional systems, prioritize interoperability. So those are the things that you need to think about. And when we think about them, think about the 4 layers and where you fit in, but don't. The key thing here is for somebody to know that they cannot look into this layer without looking or investing in the other layers, and that's the important key takeaway that we want. So what are the next steps? Now, next slide is that what we want to do is that yes, I think I said that in other cases, is we need to think about how to support open infrastructures, critical open infrastructures. For the tier 2 level is to move beyond the project grants. Also, the tier 2 meaning also a national level infrastructure, a national fee system. It has to be embedded in the national strategy and the national funding structure. We need to think about how to adopt scalable models, cost models, distributed cost sharing, tiered memberships, multi-year infrastructure funds. There is a pool of national investment. For example, we think that EOSC is a golden opportunity now with the national EOSC nodes, but also there are other mechanisms with SCOS and invest in open infrastructures that we see, and how we can combine funding with shared governance, community ownership. I mean, this is a big thing. I don't know how to do that. But what we need to think about is that the funding, comes with, it's with shared governance and community ownership, and data governance and governance in general is important. And next slide. What's next? So what are we left in our working group? So we have these things out, this conceptual architecture, and there was a discussion inside the group about what is it that we're asking for people to look at these tiers. We're asking of the of people and actors to understand each tiers and where investments investments in resources and money they need to go to. But what we are missing is, we're not naive in this, is that, in order to scale such a global infrastructure that is fit for RRA, is that we need to be very practical. So we need to define cost models and sustainability plans. We need to coordinate across funders, RPOs, and infrastructure providers. We need to load pilot, but also we need to build capacity. And I think at the last 4 or 5 months at our working group is we're going to be looking into these areas. And from preliminary discussions, the idea is that this is something that goes much beyond the capacity of people in these groups. So what we would like probably to have funders and institutions is to take up these actions and see, what are the next steps in order to make it work. And I think with this, Agiliki, I'm done. Okay, so you can
Thank you,
take over
Natalia.
now.
Thank you, Natalia, for the insightful presentation, and really, I think, resonated quite more than quite well with the discussion or the kickoff questions of the Metiminter. let me stop sharing to first see whether we have any immediate reactions from participants. We have some introductions. That's great. Giovanna says Project Opus, Squarespace and Make Data Account can help in this challenge, definitely. So we have prepared.
May I respond to something on this to Giovanna? Is that yes,
of course.
projects, Giovanna, projects do help. It's just that projects have a start and an end. And what we're talking here about is that these 4 layers of sustainability. Probably these projects supported these, but we're talking about when we think about open infrastructures. I think it's the operationalization and how this connection is being in place. And this is yes, okay, great.
Thank you, Natalia. Very important point on the sustainability. I think this is something that concerns all of us here around. Anasis, you as a subgroup 2 leader, would you like to share something? I was also wondering whether the participants have any immediate reactions or shall we?
Yeah, I mean the only thing that I would like to mention is that this was a teamwork that was done by a large number of experts that participated to the meetings of the subgroup. The result, I don't know if we have shared we have shared already the link to the policy briefs that people can use to read the text and delve into the details. So maybe they have the chance right now to go through it because, as usual, the policy briefs are small, short texts. And if there is any comment, any suggestion, I think it would be more useful to hear from the audience about this kind of comments instead of me talking, because I was part of this action and I don't have something to add. I think Natalia mentioned almost everything.
Sorry, Tana. No, I think there is a question here. Do we have representatives from European University Alliances? No, we don't. I mean, we know that some people that participate, their university is part of an alliance, okay? But we don't have formally representations of, formal representation of alliances. And now that, Santiago, that you bring this up, I think university alliances is an excellent construct that they should be looking into this into a more collective manner.
Just if I may, so I'm currently the research coordinator as part of a European University Alliance. And my question was regarding that, because I see that I've been here for a year. This is so not that long. And that we're just looking at these CoARA things happening. And individually, each institution has done their commitments and they have, participate in different discussions, but not as an alliance. And I was like, the question was directed to that point. Thank you, Natalia. On would it be helpful to have these as an alliance, not as a beneficiary of an alliance, but as an alliance itself? If that's the case, it would be really, really interesting to taking these further and because we're really interested in contributing as an alliance, not as a specific beneficiary there. So yeah, it's great.
I think if I wanted to you is that if I wanted to respond to you, I think university alliances, you have an excellent opportunity. Why? Because you jointly 10 universities, you can learn from each other and think is you can do an inventory of your infrastructure for open science, okay, and you can see what are the policies. You can align your policies, you can align your infrastructure. For example, in OpenAir, a few alliances have come and said, look, we want to have agreed system amongst our alliances, okay, but we don't have the do that. So OpenAir offers this as a service, and we do that, and they find this very fitting to them. So first of all, to see, and then they say, okay, let's have a monitor. So we offer a monitor as a service, and with this, they see their own small world, and by doing that, then there are a lot of things that are happening. So we harvest from repositories, so that means is that we are putting good metadata into repositories, and they become aware of the gaps that they have. We're not touching RRA, okay, research assessment, because it's something that they don't do, but we can offer the open infrastructure, and then once they have it all, they can discuss about the research assessment and the practices, because now they have the evidence, they have things about open data, software, and so forth. So I think it's an excellent opportunity, if you ask me. Okay, good.
Thank you, Natalia, and thank you, Santiago, for this. I would like to go to the question Q&A session. I know we only have 5 minutes, but I think it's important that we have this discussion. So Anna Maria Höfner asked, what is your opinion on the tension between openness of infrastructures and research security? Which solutions, approaches do you think about to find a sensible trade-off? And I'm posing this question to all of us, all of you, and also to Natalia Thanasis. And there is another question coming up.
I can start by answering it. Okay, so first of all is the openness of the infrastructure. Open infrastructures, what does it mean? That you have access to data, okay? That data is fair, data or metadata, or this, what we're talking about, is at least the metadata is open, at least the metadata is very well curated. So when we talk about the research assessment, maybe you don't want to have access to the data that somebody has produced, but you want to know what has this person produced, okay? And did this have an impact? So when we're talking about research assessment and open infrastructures, I think research security, it should not be part of it, because the research assessment, may go down into the quality of somebody's work when you probably need to reproduce something, in extreme cases. But there is also, open infrastructures means that, you have open metadata, very well connected, very rich, but when it comes to the data, you should keep it there, but maybe, it's a fair data and it's open under conditions. So I don't think, when we talk about open infrastructures for research assessment, is the same, exactly the same thing when we talk about open infrastructures in general, okay? But that's my view. I mean, I don't know if somebody else has another view.
No, yeah. Maybe Anna Maria, would you like to elaborate? Because when I read the question, I immediately thought about open infrastructures for RRA, but maybe this is just me because we are here in this topic. So maybe Anna Maria, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you very much, Natalia. Thank you very much for the answer. This answers my question, actually. So
okay,
no further need to elaborate. Thank you.
Okay, great. But think about, what are we doing in research assessment? We're capturing practices, we're capturing outputs, we're capturing. Then the quality is where CoARA comes and says, it's the peer review. So when you want to get on the publications, I think publications should be open. But when you start having peer reviews on data, for example, okay, that's a different story, okay? But, the peer review, you can, as long as the data is fair, and as long as the open infrastructure allows you access to this data.
Okay, thank you very much.
Maybe Thanasis, as the coordinator of Graspos, can support this next question.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking
share...
I was talking, but I was muted all this time. I was sharing. Yes, all the questions are in the chat, Thanasis, and
yes, but I think it's the Q&A. No, the Q&A of.
I've posted on the chat.
Okay,
So we have this other question by Anna Maria. I just reposted it here. So it asks about concretely be the role and relevance of EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud, for activities of CoARA in the context of global research assessment systems. And we have been working quite on that. Also had a webinar last year even. But please, Thanasis, share your thoughts. And we have another question just above.
I will give my 2 cents on that because I'm not an expert in EOSC. I do participate to some EOSC-related European Commission-funded projects, and specifically Graspos is one such project that is contributing to the EOSC ecosystem, tools, services, and data that can be used for responsible research assessment practices that take into consideration open science and incentivize the use of open infrastructures for research assessment. So this is related. So in general, because the vision behind the European Open Science Cloud is to promote open science and openness in general, and because responsible research assessment requires open data, it seems like EOSC should be one key initiative in enabling the research assessment practices that are leveraging open infrastructures. EOSC is offering such open infrastructures through its nodes and a lot of services that can be classified inside the tiers that we have presented can be considered as part of the wider EOSC ecosystem. And of course, there are a lot of different projects that are EOSC related that are trying to address parts of this larger vision. Now, by definition, I mean, if you see the EOSC, the organizations involved in EOSC and the CoARA signees and supporters, you will see that there is a large overlap. And there are a lot of initiatives, even from the European Commission side, that are trying to make sure that all relevant European Commission funded projects, together with EOSC and CoARA, are working together towards the larger vision of using the open infrastructures for responsible research assessment purposes in a way to pave the path towards more responsible and open and inclusive research assessment. There were some meetings even trying to bring together the experts from these different spaces to discuss about how this can be done. And of course, all the EOSC-related projects are trying to work towards this direction, and they are publishing policy briefs that are explaining how they are contributing.
Thanasi, may I add something to that? Because I think EOSC is very relevant, Anna. EOSC is the the initiative that embraces open science, embraces PhDs. Okay, so this is number one. Embraces PhDs beyond publications, beyond authors. So it's about data, it's about software, it's about services. Everything has to have a PhD and be at least present in a fair manner. So this is where it does. Federation, the EOSC Federation is that, nodes are popping up now, or the idea is popping up, and then the data catalogs, the research catalogs are going to be part of each node. So this is very important. And then this is excuse me, where OpenAIRE comes as a service provider also in EOSCI, you know, is that, you know, when these catalogs start popping up of different research artifacts, everything well connected together, we connect them in European and global perspective. So EOSCI is very, very relevant on building on these support services. Does it touch the research assessment? No, because, you know, this is not their business. Their business is to make sure the infrastructure works. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you, everyone. And I'm sorry to say that, but we are 5 minutes late. So we need to wrap up, but I would like to also get your insights very quickly for the question of Sadiat Adetoro, who asked, how about the security of data in the open infrastructure? And I'm not so sure if they are talking about open, like in the context of research assessment, but probably because we are in this context here. Just very quick, the thoughts of knowledge security. Natalia, Thanasis, anyone? Just very quickly, because
I think we have a process. You know, what do you mean security? Security has many connotations. So it can be privacy, it can be, you know, data security that is not, you know, trusted data that is not trusted, or data that can be stolen, right? So again, when we talk about research assessment, open infrastructure for research assessment, we're talking a lot about, you know, the GDPR. So, you know, we don't do something about GDPR. We talk about trusted data. So all the AI algorithms that are behind it, you know, are fully documented. So at least we know data, trusted data. And then the security of data with the AI. Okay, yes, okay, that's what you mean. This is not, you know, this is in open infrastructures. This is something, but what do you mean stolen? You mean crawled, right? Because, you know, when it's open data for research assessment, usually we talk about metadata. When you talk about open infrastructures to do research, okay, it's what it is. So that is where, okay, crawled, please, okay. There is only discussions about it now, okay? Repositories, for example, there was the CoARA conference, the Confederation of Open Access Repositories, and what they did is that they said, you know, look, one of these things that we have noticed is an increased bot crawling in our repositories. The same we have done with OpenAIRE. At least, you know, if it's open for us, it doesn't mean it's stolen, okay? Because it's metadata. If it's so this is again, you know, it's about security, what you want to share. If you want not to share something, you make sure it's in a fair, it's in a repository that has, you know, one of these, or a data center that it has one of these ISO security standards. And then, you know, it's up to the people to say, you know, how do they allow the bots? But again, it's not, when we talk about metadata and when it's open, no one is stealing stuff. They're crawling, but they're not stealing. So crawling means is that they are, you know, getting our systems, you know, the users, the increasing users, and then, you know, maybe our technology will not tolerate that. What we are saying in the other deliverable, in the first deliverable of the working group, is that open infrastructures, they need to have security, they need to have measures. So maybe, I'm not sure I can answer your question now, is what we are saying in the characteristics of the in the first deliverable, security and all of this is embedded. So what are the ways to do that? I'm not sure. You know, I'm not a technical person to answer, but an open infrastructure for sure needs to look into these things. Okay, open infrastructure. Yes. Okay, Angeliki put it in.
No,
okay.
this is us. Yes,
Yeah.
I think it's a
Sadia,
valid
you know,
point. No, yeah, I totally
I'm
understand.
sorry, I did not
Sadia.
answer. I did not answer, you know, properly, probably, but you know, it's an emerging problem.
I think it's a real challenge, and I've seen these discussions around that we need to pay more attention, definitely. So we're a bit over time. Are there any other immediate questions? Otherwise, I would like to thank everyone. But before I thank everyone, and particularly Natalia, Thanasis, what are any other questions that you would like to raise here? And I would like to inform you that we have another webinar, the same actually webinar on Monday, to accommodate participants from different time zones. So if you wish to share any question, or if you discuss this with a colleague, we are very happy to have you on Monday afternoon. So thank Natalia, the last word.
Thank you, Angeliki. No. The last word
Concluding
is yours.
remarks.
I want to thank Angeliki for taking, you know, for she's the soul behind, you know, everything that happens behind our group.
So I would like to also share two interesting conferences that are happening. The one next, just in 10 days. So the one is also co-organized by our working group and ERIP, and it takes place also with online attendance conferences. So this is the one. Please have a look. We are discussing very pertinent topics that have been heard here. And the next one is, of course, Open Science Fair, the conference that we are co-organizing with OpenAir. And the rethinking, the reform of research assessment is there as a core topic. Having said all that, thank you
Angeliki,
so much.
May I say something? Because people
course.
don't know what ERIP is. CoARA ERIP is the working group that is looking at artificial intelligence, how artificial intelligence is embedded in the research assessment. So, you know, open infrastructures and artificial intelligence, you know, there are many touching points. So, you know, feel free to, there are going to be a lot of discussions, especially as this is targeting for funders. So tune in, because that, you know, we hope there's going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, Natalia, for clarifying this. Hoping to see you there or see you online. Thank you, everyone, and let's work together to make this real. Cheers. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye. Thank you.